topic today is I chose the sacred lands between South Dakota and Oregon, which is where I am from. So the sacred land that is here and used by the Sioux tribes, the Lakota, Nakota, and Dakota is the Black Hills, which I'm sure a lot of you have either driven through or been to. And from back home, I chose Crater Lake, which is a lake in the bottom or the southern side of Oregon, which is used by the Klamath, Modoc, and other tribes to travel to when they need purity. Even though a lot of these have turned into tourist attractions, Indigenous people still use them today for a lot of their ceremonies, burials, and lots of other things. The Black Hills, this is a picture of before and after Mount Rushmore was developed. And the Black Hills were used for medicine, which is roots, food, water, and they used it for ceremonies, burials, and in the spring they would do what we call a buffalo dance, which is where they would travel around in the spring with a buffalo herd to call them back to the land so that way they could still hunt throughout the rest of the summer. And they would do this in the shape of a buffalo head throughout the Black Hills and end at Devil's Tower. They thought this was sacred because it was preserved for our Creator and His beings, and they only took what was necessary and always either gave back or gave a lot of thanks to it. South Dakota is entirely indigenous filled, as a lot of the towns are actually named after tribes like Sioux Falls, Sioux City, many more. And they have a lot of tourist attractions such as the Black Hills, Devil's Tower, Crazy Horse, and Dignity, and many more. And a lot of these places don't get as much tourist attraction, but if you do go there, it is very important to actually understand the story and everything from the tribes that are there. And being in Mitchell, I don't know if any of you have gone, but we also have a prehistoric Indian village, and there has been, even on the way to Sioux Falls, there's a rest area with teepees and stories of other Sioux tribes along the way. And it's just kind of everywhere. It's part of why I actually came here, so I could learn more about other tribes rather than just my own and back home. Before it was known as Mount Rushmore, it was called the Six Fathers Mountain, or in Lakota, the Kaswa Sila Sake Pawa. It was heavily used for medicine, and tribes have a medicine man or a medicine woman who will go and collect roots and everything that was essentially deemed healing and would help bring back the strength of the tribe. And a lot of the time they would go into the Black Hills, and if somebody had passed, they would bury them there and honor them so that the way their path to Creator would be safer. And even now, there are Chief Red Cloud and Chief Gull, which were both from the Lakota tribes, buried in the Black Hills. It only got turned into Mount Rushmore because of Custer finding gold and building military bases along the way to keep other settlers out, as well as indigenous peoples, which essentially broke the 1851 Treaty of Fort Laramie, which was to preserve the area and leave it to the indigenous peoples, but eventually got overruled by finding gold and so forth. Now it is Mount Rushmore, which consists of George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, Theodore Roosevelt, and Abe Lincoln, and it doesn't give the background of the tribal area, which personally I would rather go to Crazy Horse. If you go to Crazy Horse, and I don't know if anybody has been, but the entire building is dedicated to all those tribes that used the lands and all the stories and the chiefs that came together for all of that. And now, going back to Oregon, the sacred place that I had chosen was Crater Lake, which is the before picture, and it's a very big lake. It's a very deep blue, and it signifies like clarity. It's pure, and a lot of indigenous peoples go there now to clear their mind or when they're searching for guidance. It's surrounded by a forest, which the tribes used for gathering, hunting, and fishing, as well as finding medicine and burial ceremonies, everything that comes with it. It was primarily used by the Klamath, Modoc, and Yahuskin tribes, which still reside in that area and still use it for its purity and clarification. It was seen as creators' gifts to the people, as the history behind it is two spiritual beings came down and were actually fighting over the area, and Creator had separated them and made the lake for the people. And it's a very spiritual place, and a lot of tribes will still use it to relay that back. It got turned into a national park in 1902 after the original treaty was in 1864, and it was to protect the land for those tribes and not necessarily keep people out, but keep people from destroying it, as it was more of like the spiritual shield around it. But it was overridden in 1902 when it got turned into a national park and is now open to everybody. And they think that the tribal indigenous peoples in the area think that it being a national park and being open to everybody is slowly breaking the spiritual connection, because not everybody goes in with pure intentions or has a respect based for it. And so even though these are multiple states apart, they had such a connection, even though they had differences and similarities. And I know not everybody is from South Dakota, so I encourage you to look up the biggest tribe near you and see how they differ from the two that I've given you today.